What's up, everyone? This is Alman Nusrat. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you. You are listening to Faith in Fine Print.
And this is Nihal Khan, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. We've had a heavy day today. We recorded one episode earlier, and now we are here at the Islamic Center of New York University with the one and only Imam Suhaib Webb. Imam Suhaib, for those of you that don't know, he is an American Muslim scholar. He is an activist. He's someone that teaches at NYU. To give you all a really brief background of him, he's someone that everyone potentially in the Muslim community knows of in the United States and abroad, specifically in regards to an article that was published recently about his use of digital media and social media to connect with people. And more interestingly, Imam Suhaib has his undergrad in education from Oklahoma, and then he spent time at al-Azhar and graduated from there, and then he's been here. He's been around the country. He spent time in the Bay Area. He was in Boston for a bit. He was in D.C. for a bit, and now we're blessed to have him here in the Northeast in New York. So we're here with Imam Suhaib, going to be talking to him. Imam Suhaib, welcome. Assalamu alaikum.
Hold on a minute. Can you play that theme music again? Just real quick.
Here we go.
Okay.
Here we go.
Come on. That is so my era. I thought you were playing
We did that for you.
some Keith Sweat, some guy. It's like,
Yeah, today we're here with Suhaib Webb.
welcome to the Minbar.
Yeah.
Now we're starting.
I'm
Yes.
the host. I mean, I'm just saying, like, wow. Pull out the dude putty, bro.
So Alman, he's a singer and songwriter, so he knows how to mix the beats,
I mean, I can tell. That's like
That's
Pre-NSYNC.
totally royalty free.
Yeah.
NSYNC.
You weren't
Nah,
supposed to
he-
say that, Alman.
I have to give credit to the guy, but
Man.
yeah, but that's the type of music I like. I like that stuff. But
Yeah.
Being
and I wanted
vulnerable.
something that gives you kind of that vibe.
Yeah.
Of having your chai, your dude putty.
Being
Yeah.
vulnerable.
But let's get into it, Imam Suhaib. Like I said, we don't try to read bios here. We want to hear from you. What are you doing? What are you up to? What's your vision? And how did you get to where you're at right now?
I'm a daddy, man, so I'm busy, changing diapers. Just had a baby girl.
MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah. So that's first and foremost my family. My father's 80. My brother's,
wow.
getting older. So I think that's, my wife, of course, first and foremost, my queen, man. And then, secondary issues would be I have an online school that I run. We started the beta last March. We have over 700 people subscribed right now. And then moving to an app-based format after Ramadan. That's also going to start to produce shows.
Yeah.
So it'll be kind of like a Netflix for Muslims in a certain way, but not corny. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Not corny. And then, of course, I work here at NYU. I teach a class on Islamic ethics, spirituality and ethics at Wagner, as well as Islamic law and ethics with Sheikh Fayaz Jaffer. And then I work here at the IC
Nice.
at NYU.
Yeah, and at the IC, I've noticed, especially seeing it grow from when Khalid first started here, like post 9/11, right, and seeing what he's built into like a proper institution, which is benefiting all of New York City. And it's really interesting, right? They brought you on as a resident scholar. Khalid's working as the executive director. They brought on Sheikh Faiz Jaffer, who's serving the Shia community and beyond. We have a black female scholar in residence, Sheikh Aisha Prime. And I was talking to Imam Shair, who was outside, right, and he was
Right.
saying that, like, 50 years ago, he goes, I wouldn't have even have imagined this. The thought would not have entered my mind. And being in this position that you're in right now, I'm sure it's quite exciting to be where you're at and doing what you're doing. But I guess this model, how has it been functioning for the community, and how can it potentially be applied for the future in like bringing communities together?
I mean, I think first and foremost, you have to raise the capital. To do that, to raise the capital, you have to get people to believe in your vision.
Yeah.
So I think, with Khalid, what you had was a vision, and then growth, critical mass, people. I think any vision has to be subjected to like kind of a public sanctioning and refinement. And then the needs of that critical mass become kind of a natural outcome of that process.
Yeah.
And then you have to start finding different components to address those needs. And then you have the value prop. So you have like we have a very, very generous community here. Last year they raised in Ramadan almost $1 million for a domestic violence shelter in New York City.
Oh, not even for the IC, for domestic
Yeah,
violence shelter.
we have 2 fundraisers. So that was a separate fundraiser.
Wow.
So you have, people that are very generous and believe in a vision.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing that makes the IC unique, and I don't want to speak on behalf of people, is like we really try to do what people need. Like we try to make an assessment of the actual needs of people instead of saying people come to serve the institution. The ethos is that the institution is here to serve first God, right, and then serve people.
Right. That's awesome.
And for me, I didn't really have to change. You know, like this is what I've always done. So whether it was like
change in what way?
Like so people like, oh, it's a new place. It may be a new place, but it's the same operation for me. Like just serving the community. Whether it was like SuhaibWebb.com back in the days, the Bay Area, Boston, we opened up mental health clinic for Muslims. DC with Center DC, which is doing great. Like I didn't have to change a lot here to fall into place. Yeah. That's largely Khalid's like really cool, mashallah. Yeah. But like the same ethos is there. Like, serve people.
Are there any particular issues that are specific to this place that you found, or things that come up here that you may not have engaged with before, or things that are more frequent here?
I think one thing that's different is our demographic is different than any other nonprofit in America for the most part. Most nonprofits are top down in the sense of age, but we're dealing with
younger people.
Yeah, we're dealing with millennials, Generation Z, and Generation Xers. And that makes up the bulk. So Generation Z makes up, and millennials make up the bulk of who makes decisions. So that's very different, right? I'm used to being kind of around maybe people that invoke, even I'm 47, but still will invoke like their age to kind of like create leverage in the conversation. Right. Whereas here, I have to be careful that I'm not the one, right, invoking age and experience to leverage the conversation. So that's very unique. The second thing is people don't realize like we are not a masjid. So people come here, they get angry when they see like non-Muslims doing yoga on the fourth floor. Like, well, this is part of the NYU system. Right. The third thing is to see how a partnership can really be healthy. So we have a fully functioning halal dining hall at NYU.
Oh, nice.
And I think the second will open up next year. So like seeing, I think sometimes when you're in nonprofit spaces, you become very myopic in how you see things. So partnerships aren't really seen. They're seen as threats. Right. Whereas I've been able to see through great partners at NYU, like how we're able to really do transformative work. Like now we're exploring even taking our waqf and putting it into the investment vehicle through NYU, which is like going to greatly enhance like how we maintain the sustainability, not our waqf, but our trusts that we have from people, our investment trusts into the NYU investment vehicle. So it's like really cool to see like, in especially the age of Trump and identity politics and everything, like the potential of profound relationships. And I think the last is like, I hate to say this, man, but like as an imam, or I'm not imam anymore, but like as someone who studied overseas, the respect you get in the academy, man, is unparalleled. I would say.
You mean as somebody who studied overseas?
Yeah, or someone that has a background in Sharia, Hafd al-Quran. I went to madrasa for 10 years. Like that, like I'm sorry to say, like you're not treated with the same kind of like respect that you get in the academy. My experience.
Yeah. No, you're right. Actually, when I was, I also studied in Nadratul Ulama, right? I studied in a madrasa in the United States and then went overseas. And, when you're over there, you don't know what you're coming back to. Like during that time period, you're like, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do when I come back. And then when I
remember when you came back. I remember that.
Yeah, I was like, I had no idea what I'm going to do. Right. And I enrolled at the Harvard Seminary, and in between I spent a year at the Harvard Div School. And I'm just like, wow, it's like you're going to this major Ivy League institution. But because of the fact that you grinded it out overseas, I personally didn't understand, why people saw that as big of a light. Even in the masajid, they don't respect you in the way that you'll be respected in academia in like an Islamic studies department, which is really interesting to you mentioned that.
Yeah, and then the academic utility you get, like here, I mean, just the library, man. Yeah. Just the Arabic books. You can go on this NYU system, and it will actually read Arabic books to you on the internet, man.
Wow,
that's amazing.
In Arabic.
Like, yeah, in Arabic. Like it's like, it's like funny sounding. It's like فَقَدْ قَالَ Imam Ghazali هَؤُلَاء الْمُتَّقُونَ. But it's like it's there, right? You can use that, and that's then awesome. and I think that is the mu'assasat diniya. Tonight you were at my halakha, and there was an issue of women leadership, and one of the things I wanted to respond was like, creating women leadership is an important component, but then let's talk about women's salaries. Yeah. Like men aren't even paid right. So you can imagine, so like strategically, just unfortunately, man, the respect and utility that you may find within nonprofits, not the Muslim community. Muslim community is a little different, can be a challenge, man.
Yeah. Let's get into this. I know right now you're doing a lot of work with SWIS, which is the Suhaib Webb Institute of Islamic Sciences, and I think you've been producing material as well. So you produced the Essentials of Islamic Faith. It's, you produced that book, and it's been used by adults and young people and old people alike. And another aspect you mentioned like today, that there was like your coursework is making it all over the world now in a way which may have been inaccessible several years ago. So and then that also ties into, I remember like that article came up. It was kind of like funny the way they put you there, like the Snapchat Imam, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like, but the main point that they're making is that you're trying to reach out to people through these social media means and whatnot, digital means. And I think me and Alman were talking about this. Alman is a singer-songwriter. He's in the arts, right? And myself, giving khutbahs, this and that, we were both like, man, I hate seeing my face on a screen and even engaging with people through the internet, because it can be a very volatile experience, number one, and other times it can be a very sometimes draining experience. So for you, how do you kind of get into it where you are able to use those means to an advantage, number one? Number two, how do you push back against the digital trolls, the people that, are out to, harm you in the work that you do? And by you, I mean just like general people that are out there who want to get involved in a digital space but find it difficult because of that. Or even number three, which comes into the issue, like intentions, right? People are like, I'm struggling with my intentions. How do I do this in the right way so I don't come off as showing off? So I guess all those things compounded, how should people be approaching the digital age to learn their faith?
Cautiously.
Yeah.
And critically as well as constructively.
Yeah.
So it's funny when people talk about Snapchat Imam experience, right? I didn't do that to teach. I did that to learn.
Interesting.
Right? So I did that to better engage and understand younger audiences. I mean, I would do TikTok if I could. I just don't have time. I don't understand it, man. It's like a gin.
It's actually banned for TSA agents, we found out today.
Wow.
Because it's like, it's a what was it? The idea was
it's owned by China.
Yeah, that's another reason why I ain't about that life. but I did that largely at the bequest of some of my students, so I could just like begin. I had no idea it was gonna go viral, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And that's one reason I shut it down. It was like, it was too, I don't want this many people.
Oh, you're not on Snapchat anymore?
No, I don't want that many people in my life, man. You know what I mean? Like, I got what I needed, and that was the questions for that first book.
Yeah.
And then I'm still on Instagram from time to time. I do Q&A. But I worry also that these things are curating our behavior in ways that are unhealthy.
Yeah.
Where, when you and I are, even though I'm older than you, we do come from kind of a generation of people who set out to do religious studies very much for a self-interest.
Right.
Not a financial self-interest.
Right.
Maybe it was me. I don't want to be dumb white convert guy. I don't know what it meant to you.
Oh, for me, I didn't ever think I'd go into this full time. I was just like, I want to learn my faith, and then maybe I'll get a job in IT, or I'll get a job becoming a therapist or something. Yeah.
Like Abdul Sattar, a friend in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Like people. So, but now I have people reach out to me and they're like, I want to be an imam. How do I go viral?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Like
That's
That's like I want to be Jay-Z. How do I go viral?
So it's antithetical to like the whole process of it being sincere,
right?
Seeking religious knowledge. So I worry that the framing of how religion is looked at is a problem.
Yeah.
The second thing is I feel that many of these sources are untethered from God. God is never mentioned, and really about heathenry and amplifying the beauty of the dunya.
Yeah.
And for us, that's a problem. The temporary life is something that should be debased, not to the point that we neglect it, but we should not be amplifying this place as a place of ultimate comfort.
Right, right.
And that's why we have people now, they say people are developing psychosis and mental health issues because they see like a keto ad on Instagram where they see all these keto tags.
Right.
And it's like, I was 500 pounds last year, now I'm, 8% body fat. That's like 30% of the people. Or, 3% of the people. So I worry that is very unhealthy. The last thing, and of course, and I think this has a good and a bad to it, is that there's no way to regulate the quality of a teacher. And I say that in 3 areas. Ethically. So I've had people reach out to me and say that people are using their Instagram accounts to for inappropriate stuff, or Facebook.
Uh-huh.
I had somebody actually create an account using my name that was hitting up young women.
Oh man.
I had a man come to my office in Boston with his wife. He wanted to beat me up. And I was like, bro, that's not me. Look for the blue dot, man.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So that's an unethical issue. The third thing is raising money, right? Using it. I recently had someone ask me if I had an orphanage in Nigeria. I was like, I would go through Islamic Relief or Helping Hand, and the third is
it's like I got an email from you in my spam folder from the prince that was there.
And the third thing is people confusing education for entertainment, right? So FusiTube is not religion, right?
Yeah.
Adam Saleh is not where you take religion. But then there's also people who may utilize Islamic language, and I understand why, but may be giving information which is wrong.
Yeah, that was definitely a trend. I mean, a couple of years ago, I don't know if it still exists, where people would, YouTubers that are not scholars or teachers in any shape or form, would have these videos where they would have their 2 cents at the end of it, kind of giving their fatwa or whatever, like, their take on it and passing judgment on something that they're not qualified to give. And then you have a whole generation of young people who are kind of taking from this, be like, oh, I see your point. I see how you arrived at a conclusion, and kind of then engaging with the religion with these kind of newfound rules or newly implemented rules or whatever. And this goes back to something that you and I were talking about, Nihal, on the episode with, I think, with Susie Ismail, where with social media, one of the things I see is that it is a part of this culture of our experience where everything's instantaneous, where you can fill a void like that, or attempt to fill a void. So, there's pornography, there's whatever you can click on, but then there's also these like spiritual highs that you can kind of click on something and then experience something real quick, like a snippet from a lecture with the ahs and the oohs in the background. And then you feel something, but it's like, it's definitely not that experience that you guys have gone and you've gone somewhere and studied and you made it a part of something bigger, as opposed to just kind of, I don't know, like, what's your take on that in terms of people kind of accessing things and allowing it to make them feel something for a short amount of time?
Well, there's duality here, right? Also, we have a problem with people who go overseas and forget how to be a Snapchat imam. Right? كَذَلِكَ كُنْتُمْ مِنْ قَبْلُ فَمَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمْ فَتَبَيَّنُوا. Quran says to the Sahaba, you used to be like these people. So we also have a religious educated community which is untethered from critical cultural language and thought.
Right.
So then they get frustrated and angry that these people don't understand me.
Right.
On the other side, we have people where ignorance has permeated to the point where now ignorance is the gold standard. So Abu Ala al-Mu'arri says, فَلَمَّا رَأَيْتُ الْجَهْلَ فَاشِيًا تَعَلَمْتُ حَتَّى يُقَالُ أَنِّي جَاهِلُ. He said, when I saw that ignorance had permeated, I learned until people called me stupid. Because the balance was ignorance. Right? So they thought I was ignorant, but I knew what I was doing, right? The Prophet, when he first comes out, he's agitating them in ways where they've never heard.
Right.
So there is a concern that between the educated religious person who is culturally ignorant and the culturally educated Muslim who's religiously ignorant, there is someone in the middle who is perhaps more culturally educated and not religiously literate, but a little bit more than those they serve, and they say things which are, or teach them things which are incorrect.
Right.
It has to be, you have to know the people, right? You have to engage the people.
I think it always goes back to this conversation about balance, right? There's always got to be that middle road that understands the context and understands the faith, and understands the whole way to communicate, because that communication is key. And it's going back to the other episode we did earlier with Sister Rueda, where I was talking about the music that I do and how it's kind of like this middle path, because I'll sing a song that's like a qasida or something, but then I'll cover Dido, White Flag, and people hear and see my engagement with music and what I produce and what I put out, and they get confused because they want to either categorize it here or categorize it there. But the reality is that I'm kind of living this experience where I'm doing things that just make sense to me, that are kind of in this middle path, communicating with both audiences and in a way that hopefully works. And sometimes it gets lost in translation. Yeah. But I think the more we have individuals like yourself and people who are using these tools to communicate effectively with cultural literacy and also, I guess religious literacy, I think that's beneficial. It reinforces that necessity of a middle path of communication.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No.
And to your point, how do you avoid the trolls? Just avoid them, right? Like people who may criticize something that is open for criticism within their realm of concern, right? That's fine. But someone who starts to personally criticize me or engage me in ways that I know they don't know me, like you don't know me like that, I could care less what they have to say.
Yeah.
Because you don't know me.
Right.
So I think it's very important that you don't read the comments, you don't look at the likes. And then you also learn that you have to have a group of people around you who can bring constructive criticism into your life. So that void is not there. And then, there are unfortunately a lot of wounded people online. And there are also a lot of people online that are bots or paid to be deliberate
Russian
haters.
bots.
Or whatever, right? Even sponsored by UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, right? There's a lot of money. The Zionists, Islamophobes, we need to understand they actually pay people. We see now coming out of the Gulf countries, like they're creating influencers who are apolitical, magnifying the dunya, living a glitzy lifestyle, but have nothing to say about climate change, have nothing to say about human rights, have nothing to say about things that are very important to people. We need to be aware of this. And so I've learned to realize, like, people online that don't know you, they don't know you, don't need to waste your time with it.
Yeah, and I think it also goes back to the idea of hadith, like criticism, like jarh wa ta'deel and all that stuff, and taqreed al-hadith. Like, if someone was majhul, if they're unknown, it actually affects the grading of what the hadith is. Right? If you don't know who the person like narrating is, it will affect the authenticity of that hadith. So it's interesting how that is encompassed within the Islamic sciences, but how within our social ethical paradigm of living, people are like, oh, someone has said something on the internet, I must respond. Right. And it's just like, I sometimes wonder like how that gets lost. And it's like what Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah said, right? He's like, I argued with someone who was ignorant and I lost, but I argued with someone who was intelligent and I won. Like, that was like the interesting point to understand.
And what's powerful is the majhul al-hal, the unknown narrator, we still affirm that their character is good.
Yeah.
So those people that may be saying things about us or coming after us, I don't necessarily have to judge their character.
Right.
I can just be aware of, I don't agree with what, the way they're coming at me. There's no way that they know that. And sometimes also people are very passionate.
Right.
And we need to love them and comfort them and say, it's okay, man. Like, you don't agree with me, but life goes on.
Yeah. So let's switch gears before we take our break. The one thing which is really interesting is how, and you had mentioned this today during the halaqah, which was, on one end you're dealing with like, Islamophobes saying, oh, who is this Imam coming out of Oklahoma and talking about Islam and trying to establish Sharia? But then on the other end, you're getting published in ISIS magazine saying that you're a disbeliever and, wajib al-qatal and all that stuff. Number one is that, and then on top of that, you have like, certain segments of the Muslim community who may disagree with you. And like, I think everyone's like, okay, if you want to disagree, right? Like, write an article refuting what I've said, but as opposed to like calling someone out, character assassination. And this is, I guess, the point of, vulnerability. Like, how have you had to deal with that? And I know like it's not easy, right? It's not easy sitting there, having, your name and your personality thrown around by like every single side of the equation. Like, how do you personally have to like?
I think it's harder on your kids, right? I think it's harder on family. I mean, we as soon as we went into religious vocation, we knew that we were inviting both extremes.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think I had expected. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا. Allah says prophets had enemies.
Wow, yeah, I never thought about it.
Every
like
prophet
that.
had enemy. And they had Ansar, right? They had helpers. So for me, I think the bigger challenge is that, when people say things that I said that I never said and never reached out to me, like homosexuality or whatever, right? Never contacted me to find out what I actually said. That causes me to kind of like lose respect for that person in the sense of like, I don't trust you anymore.
Yeah.
Because you don't know the Jedi code, right? The Jedi code is, unless it's something said publicly where you're harming people, you should write the article and send it to me.
Yeah.
Not write the article and put me on blast. And this is where I believe, as I said in my talk earlier tonight, we need to move beyond political literacy to political theology. We need to remove, the language of contemporary activism is great, but when I ask people, what is the theo component of your activism? There's nothing there.
Yeah.
So there's no religious language. The first thing Allah taught Adam is what? Language.
Yeah.
So I lose respect for people when they do stuff like that, or when I find out that it says something about behind my back to people and they're smiling in my face. I have nothing to do with them. I'm old school. Bye. It's done. Peace out. هذا فراق بيني وبينك. If they want to have a conversation, I'm willing to revisit that conversation, but that doesn't mean that, like what Tupac said, I'll feed you, but you can't eat in my house or at my table. And that's just how it is. And the reason I'm like that is I don't have time for it. Like, I don't have time to trust people who aren't trustworthy. So I tend not to let that bother me in that way. I think the bigger thing is when you have a family, and you have children, who are teenagers and they see these kind of things, that's where it's an issue. The third thing is like I've had my boys since conversion. Like we were all ex-bloods. We became Muslim together, and we're tight.
Yeah.
And I keep my circle very small. Like I don't have a tight circle. I don't have a big circle. I have a very tight circle from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, and I just, that's how I am. It doesn't really bother me. I don't see that as something that's like going to impact me or, you know, move me in a certain way. Li kulli shay'in zakah. Everything has zakah, right? So the zakah of being in these places. And I also don't expect me to be right all the time. Like
Right.
I appreciate the fact, like tonight in our class on Usul al-Fiqh, I was like, oh, I'm happy to hear dissent. You know, one of the things I worry about is that and I like this about what Yasser Qadi has been doing and Sheikh Omar Suleiman. I think Sheikh Aisha Prime does a good job of this, is we can also model differing, right? We don't have to be like, oh, I don't agree with you, now you're irredeemable.
Yeah.
That's not Islamic theology.
Just cancel out.
Yeah, cancel culture. Of course, crimes, things like that, I
Right.
get it. We're talking about you and I just don't see eye to eye, man.
Yeah.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think also, right, me and Alman were talking about this, and I've been, ever since actually I moved to Connecticut and got involved in the community, like I'm just getting used to like people just not liking me for the sake of not liking because they didn't like something I said or something like that. Yeah. Or if like somebody's, you know, talking bad about me about things I never said or did. And the thing which keeps coming to mind, Imam Suhaib, for me, right, and like you said, I am much younger, but I feel like this is forcing me to grow up a little bit quicker, which is the you know, the hadith and the incident of Wahshi, right? Like Wahshi killed the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, right? And afterwards he took his shahada, and the Prophet ﷺ told him to reiterate everything that he did. And at that moment, the Prophet ﷺ told him, look, you're a Muslim, you know, your life and property and everything are safe from this day, but don't you dare ever step foot in front of my face ever again. Like that's the price of the forgiveness at that point, because even Prophet ﷺ is human. And and I think this sort of comes down to no one wants to be around someone who doesn't humanize them, right? Like if you're gonna consider someone's words that you disagree with to be a means to attack them, and this is for everyone listening, right? You may disagree with Alman doing music. You may disagree with Imam Suhaib's like stances on stuff. You may disagree with the way I conduct a class. Like, well, I welcome that disagreement, but let's talk about it in a civil manner. Right. If we don't know how to disagree, right, and we only know how to agree, then this is a world of yes men.
And to realize that we're all going to make mistakes in this process, right? That's the other thing, is like I won't be perfect in my acceptance of your dissent, as you probably won't be perfect in sharing your dissent with me.
Yeah.
I should expect that, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I honestly, so, you know, I'll block you, man. And I don't care. If someone is attacking someone in the comments, if someone is saying something about me which is disrespectful, like rude, disrespectful, bye.
Yeah.
And I don't care, because you get kicked out of the sandbox, bro. That's how life is.
Yeah.
And then when people, I don't understand why I was kicked out, because you don't know how to act right.
But you're an imam.
Yeah. So here's,
let me beat you up a little bit.
This is what I wanted to reflect on what you just said. People probably don't like you not because of you, but because they live vicariously through who they think you are.
Right.
And they may have had bad experiences with other imams and sheikhs and whatever. I get that. But that doesn't now allow you to la darara wa la dirar, right? To project that on you.
Right.
And that's one of the challenges I've had as a convert, is people trying to define who I am. And when I'm not who they think I am, then they get upset. And I'm like, well, but you created that mold, man. I didn't make that mold, bro.
Right. There's this, it reminds me of this time that I went to the mosque, and, you know, I'm used to people coming up to me and learning about the work that I do. It's the Mantle, which is the third space that we created in Connecticut. And, you know, we do things there that people may disagree with. So I'm used to, and then I do music and stuff, so I'm used to people coming up and saying things. So there was this one guy, it was basically an uncle, who came up to me, and he wanted to say something. I was like, okay, here we go. But actually what he said was, I thought it was quite profound. And he was like, you know what? I'm really happy with the work that you're doing. And he said, just remember that the people who put in the effort, you know, for every person who's putting in the effort, there's a lot of people who are not. Yeah. And you also have to recognize that when you do that work, there will be people who disagree with you, who will come after you, try to say things about you, your organization, the work you do. Just remember that the Prophet of God, Muhammad, peace be upon him, was stoned when he went to Taif. And he said, and those people try to kill him. And that's the beloved of God. And if he went through that, then consider yourself lucky when you get some of these people who are just like saying things and trying to do their thing. But really like our intentions and the work that we're trying to do, it goes beyond that. And then we take we do what we have to keep that mission going, right? Whether it means you have the sound box, you got to move away from certain people. You have to keep it going, and just remember that those people will always be there, who are gonna
And what's powerful here is the simplicity of sometimes the analysis, is that it's a generational issue.
Yeah.
But you being younger than me means that you have more energy to be wiser than me.
Interesting.
Right? Why don't I look at it that way? You being younger than me now means you have more energy to be wiser than me. Me being older than you means I might have more experiences to offer cadence to that wisdom. So I've seen uncles and aunties who are like the most religiously, I hate the word progressive because that implies people tell me I'm progressive. I'm like, where are you going? Like, where are you headed? Yeah, but more, I like to say more religiously committed.
Yeah.
Older people sometimes are more down than young people. Young people still very sometimes insecure, very irrationally conservative, don't have the experiences in life, right? So to frame these things also as like simple generational issues would be a grave mistake and would not allow us to address some of the challenges strategically, because these are old people, right? These old people got a lot to teach us, man. We just have to engage them correctly and give them a voice. Like imagine, as the one sister told me at Center DC when I was in DC, we started it. And we learned from what she said. She said, I don't feel like I'm welcome here because I'm like over 45.
Yeah, I think ageism in the Muslim community is a problem.
Oh, man.
People before Trump, right? Anti-immigrant like sentiment in the Muslim community, like, and I think we all fall into it, like, making fun of uncles and aunties because their accents. But suddenly, when Trump is going after the immigrants, like, there is this understanding, like, oh man, like we've been very anti-immigrant even in the community, and it's been very like, an underpinning sense of like, oh, American exceptionalism. Like if you speak without an accent, then you have something to offer. But if you speak with an accent, then you're going to be treated like a second-class citizen. Then number two, ageism, right? Like I always hear it from young people. And honestly, Imam Suhaib, the hardest group of people for me to work with these days are like people my age, right?
Oh man, the worst nonprofit I ever worked with young people.
Yeah, like, and it's just like, and I'm not just saying this to like hate on them, but it's just like, again, like anti-immigrant sentiment. And ageism, like, oh, I'm just going to push back against them because they're old. And because they're old, they probably don't have good ideas. Right. Like, and then, like, I'm like, well, that's why we're not getting work done. The community of the Prophet ﷺ was all encompassing, With that, let's take a break with a word from our sponsor and then finish off the podcast, inshallah.
Right. Here's a message from our sponsor, the Mantle.
Hey listeners, wondering what the Mantle is? The Mantle is an organization based in Fairfield County, Connecticut. We are dedicated to creating sacred spaces that facilitate the understanding of Islamic spirituality. The Mantle aims to revive the prophetic tradition of understanding, compassion, and spiritual cultivation. We encourage authenticity in exchange for authenticity. Come as you are to learn Islam as it is. Find out more about the Mantle by following us online on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Mantle of Love. We hope you enjoy the rest of this episode of Faith in Fine Print.